question. It's got a nice one. Did growing up in an ashram?
Were you talking about the ashram?
Yeah, no, seriously. Did growing up in an ashram, did it influence or start your journey into Eastern kind of influence and imagery? Was that the kind of spark of it?
I would say, for sure. I mean, I was always into drawing, and we learned a lot about Hindu deities, and I remember drawing Shiva and Kali. And
what age was this?
This is when we moved there when I was 10 or 11, and we lived at the ashram till I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah. So the school was probably not the best education, I would say, but we learned meditation, we studied Hindu philosophy, Hindu deities. Like, I knew every Hindu deity, and we meditated for an hour every day, did hatha yoga. So I think it was good for me. It was good for a kid.
I think that's pretty awesome, actually, the idea that you're going to learn and practice meditation. I don't practice it, but it just seems like something that, why wouldn't that be useful for a person to know and to, have the inner dialogue or inner ability to, know yourself, control yourself, have your mind free from, the psychoses of modern life and that kind of thing. And for the moment,
For sure.
it's pretty neat.
Yeah. I wish I could say that I continue that practice. I mean, I think I use that still here and there. I don't sit down and have like a concentrated meditation very often. When I was fighting, I tried to use that more, implement that more.
Like when? Like between training or what? Like when would you?
Like before training, I would try to do that. Before fights, I would definitely do that.
Interesting. Like what was your goal in doing that before like a fight, for instance?
Just calming myself, getting focused, trying to like block out all the noise, the distractions that kind of cause that anxiety. Because I can be an anxious person. Before I found myself being really, really anxious, and just like everything was just like too much. Everything around me, and there's just like so many distractions. When you just have one thing you have to do and focus on, it's easy to get caught up in everything else. We probably like tattooing too,
Right, starting
your
project.
Like you're trying to do is like an amazing, like intricate tattoo, and you've got a shop around you that you have to manage, and you've got like, memory over here, and like all these people coming in, and
the internet's broken, and you got. Yeah. Can you give me an answer about this thing? And you're like, fucking my brain's already off. I can't even do anything.
That's the hardest part to being a shop owner, is like all that shit you got to do, and you got to do this tattoo.
That's insane.
Yeah,
it's so hard.
So I think, I've heard about people like kind of using meditation like while they're tattooing even, and not like saying a mantra while you're tattooing, but just like being in present time. And I mean, you could in your mind be saying like whatever, repeating something in your head just to like block out everything else. And that's probably something I should try to do more. But I think there's all different kinds of ways to meditate.
Right. Interesting. I think I do that sometimes when I start a larger project with outlines and stuff, and I'll tell my client, like, if they seem to be pretty talkative beforehand, I'll tell them, hey, while I'm doing this outline, I can't really communicate with you too much because it takes a lot of concentration, which is totally true. Like, for me, I can't necessarily, like, focus on pulling big lines, and then also if I have a lot of freehand stuff about the positive, negative aspects of where things go and the layers, like, don't pull that line over this, it goes behind the other one or something like that, and going like, blah, 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 and then like, oh, cool, let me dig this line out, but I fucking
So you'll say to them first, like, hey, I need to...
Yeah, I'll be like, hey, I can't do it, I'm sorry, and obviously they're going to be amenable to that because they want to me do good work, but I notice, you mentioning that makes me think that when I do outline, I do get pretty focused and pretty isolated. I'm able to block out a lot where I'm working on. If I'm in a good space where people say things and I don't hear it, I straight up don't even hear it.
Yeah.
So I could see that. Look at Zach's this one on his head. He's like, oh yeah.
Do you have certain music you put on when you're outlining versus?
No. I mean, once in a while it might be like if it's I never want to like, if I'm outlining something or if I'm doing a real painful spot on somebody, I'm definitely not going to put on like hyper aggressive music.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that adds to a thing, a certain.
Kind of brings your stress level up.
Yeah, it's a little intense. Like I'll never put on like Slayer or even for me like real freeform jazz, because to me it just doesn't have a groove that I can get into. It's too scattered and too free, and to me that's disconcerting. Just same thing way as like listen to whatever fucking Rain and Blood when you're trying to run some like nice outline. You're like, Jesus Christ, but to each their own. But
I've heard about people saying like music that doesn't have lyrics, like instrumental, is better for artists versus like your brain's trying to understand, whether you realize it or not, your brain's trying to understand the lyrics or listen to it.
Sure.
If you ever thought that way, like put on instrumental versus...
Yeah, not usually, because I think for me, a lot of music for me is driven by lyrics. Like I really value not only singing, which some of the stuff I listen to, they're not particularly talented singers, but message and like emotion in lyrics to me is really important to the overall music and what it is. So no, I don't listen to a lot of instrumental stuff, honestly. Like I do sometimes, of course, but
Yeah.
mostly music that is lyric based is my thing.
Yeah.
I
don't mind instrumental, but I'm the same. I don't really know of a lot of good instrumental music. And I know I try to explore it, but
gotcha.
usually I'm just like, just trying to find something easier, doing something else. Fetch our hands again.
Yeah, I mean, some jazz stuff I like, and I definitely like some classical for instrumental, if you will.
Yeah.
Some of the more, I don't know, modern instrumental stuff doesn't do as much for me, honestly.
We were listening to Ethiopian jazz for pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as like being concentrated, there's definitely days where it's really a lot harder than other days, and that's probably just so many factors.
It's just the amount of stuff that's happening in the shop. Yeah, it's insane. It's pretty.
Yeah, and too much coffee, or yeah, there's like a million things going on at once.
Yeah.
And then it's convention week, and you got 10 people tattooing. It's,
Yeah. Then when
it goes to it's like, I'm not gonna get anything done. I'm not gonna get anything done on this tattoo.
Oh, I know. And then the person helping you manage the shop is like pulling their hair out too, because you're like, hey, gotta just change this thing because fucking and this and. That's the way I get. I'm not good at it.
The worst is starting and trying to stencil and draw it somewhere. That is like, that's the most stressful too.
Of course, that's the hardest part of tattooing.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you're having to make all these decisions, and
Yeah.
it just feels like
Tattooing is easy. The mechanical aspect of tattooing is pretty easy for me, but the stenciling is like a nightmare, stressful thing.
Yeah. Especially if it's draw stuff on. Like on a day like that, I prefer to have my drawing done. Like I don't want to draw anything on really.
Right.
But I'm always impressed with tattooers like Henry. Like he can just have 4 conversations going on, and he's like drawing the shit on, or puts on a stencil that just you can't even tell what the fuck it is, and it's just then he tattoos and it's just like fully polished. We're like, what the fuck? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't worked long term with a lot of people who do that. I know some are able to. I know Garber draws a lot of stuff on it that's really good, but Henry definitely has the ability to draw something on really loose and then finish it with a machine, unlike I think a lot of people can. It's pretty amazing that ability to visualize and control the end product there.
I know it's ever draw on you. You don't draw much on. Like probably bio is like what do you?
I even stencil bio.
You even stencil bio.
A lot of it, yeah. I mean, I draw.
You're gonna draw a background on, but
Yeah, I draw anything that needs to get drawn on, in my opinion, right?
yeah.
I think I was influenced early when I worked with Ed, when he had made an not offhanded comment, but he had told me it was something that I don't know what it was. I don't know what I was working on. A project. Drawing something on, and I was talking to him, he's helping me with the drawing or something, and he said, never draw something on that you can stencil. And in my brain, I was like, okay, that's another little golden nugget to take from Ed, because obviously I love his work. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He's as talented as any tattooer that ever did it. So I thought, well, okay, that makes a lot of sense. He didn't give me, an explanation per se of what it worked, why he felt that way. But in my brain, it was always that and it works for me in this way too, is that I get to work out some things and expand on my idea a little bit more and refine it and get it better
Yeah.
than the first or second drawing on the skin. I can work out 5 ones on paper quick and then come to a style or an expression that I feel like encompasses what I want to achieve versus getting one on that like, that works, but not the one that's like, oh, fuck yeah, that was killer. Like I made a little jump in like my vision and my idea of what I thought that this kind of subject could look like in the skin.
Right.
Effectively and stylistically and visually.
Yeah.
So,
I think like coming up around you and Jason, that had a big impact on me as far as what I feel is okay to draw on. And I mean, I feel guilty when I draw something on that should be stenciled. You know, I feel like but could have been better, or it's going to be better if I draw it and make it stencil.
yeah.
Most times. The only thing I feel comfortable with is background, like water. I feel generally it almost looks better when I draw it on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Angles and
Yeah, for sure.
the way it
Fit.
fits. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. Like that stuff, I think it's important to draw them on in clouds to make sure everything. I mean, clouds, you can't even stencil it. They're just,
Yeah, I've never really been able to stencil those.
so I quit trying that idea
The
because
size is lucky off.
exactly that's super bored. You know, as you get more experience, you started seeing these things, right? You're like, well, that's not gonna work.
It's really hard to figure out the size is going to be in the stencil, but yeah, that's always had a big impact to me. Is I remember you telling me that really early on in my career. Like, I think you said the same thing. If you can stencil it, it's going to be better because if you draw it on, you're going to go back to like your old tricks. You're not going to expand on it. You're not going to try to make it the next level. You're not going to make it better. It's just going to be what you're comfortable with, and that's how
Right.
you
Yeah.
draw everything on. It's all going to start looking the same.
Yeah, because you're gonna fall back on like your ability.
Yeah.
And your confidence because you're performing under pressure in that moment of freehand. Right. It's like you gotta do output. It's gotta be good because you're gonna make it into a fucking tap. So that's scary. And then they're watching you do it most of the time. They can just stare at you doing it.
Yeah.
So there's like a weird pressure there.
Oh, yeah.
They're-
I mean, no little changes. No, like, why did you do that? You know?
Totally.
Yeah, that's why I've always been so impressed with guys like Garver, who seems to just, like, I've heard of him drawing on, like, a cherub sleeve. And, you know, figures, drawing on a figure on a rib. And it's just like,
Yeah.
but,
I watched him in Japan. We were tatting some little fucking abandoned schoolhouse or some shit,
Yeah.
some weird thing at the first Japanese tattoo convention in '99, and he had to do little sugar skulls on a girl's shoulders, I think here, and they were symmetrical. I mean, they were matching, identical sugar skulls, also placed identically on the body, and he freehanded them both. I was like, why would you do that? That looks like such a stressor. But of course, I'm sure when he was done, it was like 98% fucking nailed because he's so good at like that ability.
that's next level. I know. And
Oh,
Eddie, too. I mean, I remember him doing that on my buddy Sean Ferguson's chest. He got a Hanya, and Eddie just put a cross there. Is that where you want it?
Really?
Yeah. And then he just tattooed off the cross. Like there was like maybe a circle cross, like kind of where the eyes were going to be in the mouth. And then he just tattooed it right off of that. And it's sick. It's loose. It's got a lot of energy. It's just like, it's awesome.
Eddie Tat, that's amazing. Yeah.
But for me, I think it's better. You know, I feel like you always say, you know, it's if you want to get your stuff looking how you want it, you want to keep pushing it and making your stuff better, then stenciling is just the best way to do it.
I would agree for the most part. I think it's good sometimes to push with when you're drawing something on, you get a chance or an energy that you don't see on paper with the skin and the body. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, for me too, it's just that's the only way that I'd be able to probably experiment in the ways that I want to experiment because I don't have the ability to just like draw, come up with a great drawing in 10 minutes, Sometimes I could maybe, but like the idea that I'm going to be able to do that all the time is pretty...
Well, I think it's admirable that you don't draw anything on. I think it's just shows your work ethic that you have your drawing ready to go. Like where you are in your career, and you could draw things on. More
Yeah,
than you do, but
it's
you
true.
decide not to. And
I think it's for the fear of that. And some, like I said before, some of it is like performative pressure
Yeah.
of like drawing it on or something like that. There's some things that I draw on because I know that I'll have to. I just do a lot of homework beforehand. I do sketches about it, so I'll have stuff to work from.
Right.
You know, like ideas or whatever it is to work on a body part. And I have a lot of visualization.
almost that training.
Yeah,
Training your
absolutely.
hand, training your eye.
And I've done visualization about what I want it to look like and stuff, so I go there and I have a plan. Because then sometimes I can get mired and like, it's kind of, you know, so many possibilities of things, right? And if you don't stay focused, you're like, well, what the fuck am I going to focus on? What am I?
And if they're like going on around you, you know, you could get distracted and like make crazy, you know, impulse decision that you regret later.
Right.
That's another thing you've always been able to do is visualize color and like how everything's going to lay out and like these elaborate color schemes that my brain doesn't work that way. I need to like at least have something like some kind of reference, like how these colors are going to look together, or mess around on the iPad first, or that's difficult for me. You can look at a tattoo and visualize the whole thing, how it's going to be colored, what those colors are going to look
But I
like.
can change the colors too.
Yeah.
I can see it like an outline, like a template. And if someone goes, well, I want to have the dragon red, I'll be like, okay, you want this red? We could do this color. We could do the other place this color and these other parts, and we could do it like this, or we could do this, this, or this. I'll give them some options. Like I feel like I can visualize it mostly colored in different scenarios.
And is that because you've done those colors before together?
No, I think
or
it's
it's just like,
somehow my brain does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow my brain like is able to
do you think graffiti
channel through those things. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
But I think this stuff was before graffiti too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I talked to Jason Kendall about that. And he always felt like graffiti really helped him with color palettes and like,
Sure.
because you use so many different colors all the time and what looks good together. And
Right.
you can see that influence in his work for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
he has certain palettes, you know, are like, that's Kendall palette for sure, you know? But yeah, for me, I don't know, my brain just doesn't work that way. I try. It's pretty but Japanese too is like it's very simple palette, you know.
Right. Especially the more stripped down you get, the more basic it is, and
Yeah.
it can that's a challenge in itself to be stripped down but really good, but also, you know, you're not juggling 20 different color schemes going like, I don't know which one I want to do this week.
Yeah. And working next to Henry is cool because he has such a different way of looking at color than me. He'll like give me ideas where I'm like, I never would have thought. That's super cool. Like, that's totally wild to me. But I'll try it and it looks cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just bringing that up is a really good point of working with people, right? And being open to criticism is because you get to have those moments where you learn that now what he's imparted to you is yours.
Ooh.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's not his.
Right.
It's yours now too. And so it's a really cool aspect of sharing in the creative process and the endeavor is that, you know, as a practicing, you know, professional artist, you really expand each other when you're open to sharing and critique and ideas and experimentation.
Absolutely. I don't think I would. I definitely wouldn't be where I am now, and I don't think I could get to where I want to be with my tattooing if I was working alone. And
Yeah.
even over the last, this short amount of time, we've been kind of getting back into tattooing after COVID. We're working with less people at a lower capacity, and I don't have that same kind of feeling of like a shop around me. And although it's nice sometimes to just have a really peaceful environment, I really miss that.
Energy.
Yeah, the bouncing back and forth and sharing
Yeah.
ideas. So it's super important. Especially like at early stage in your career, I just don't even know. I think it'd be really detrimental to your tattooing.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, that brings me to the idea or the thoughts that I had, which is, you know, with COVID, a lot of shops closing, a lot of people doing private studio things, a lot of those people aren't that experienced in tattooing, and I think to myself, it's gonna hinder their career so much because they're just gonna be their own sounding board, you know, with no competing point of view.
Yeah.
No other eye to go like, hey, this looks a little bit weird. And once it's pointed out, I'm not saying they're going to be like, no, it's not. They might be like, oh, shit, it is. But if you don't have another person, sometimes you can't see it, you know?
Right.
And that's not me pointing fingers, like it happens to me too.
Yeah.
For sure. Like it's just the way it
Because
is.
you get so locked in, you get attached to your drawing, or
Yeah, and you think it looks good. It
Yeah.
feels good, and you look at it, and you're like, I think it looks good. And someone else points the thing out, and you're like, fuck, how did I not see that? It's in my face the whole time.
right.
And I'm refining other parts of it, but I couldn't see that thing.
And it might even be something's overlapping where it should be under in your drawing, or something stupid like that.
Yeah, it could be something basic.
And it could be something really big. I mean, that's for me. I think I've always worked around people that I think are much better than me at tattooing, and I try to be really open to critique and like not get too attached to my drawings. And I mean, you always told me that like, it's just a drawing. Don't be attached to it. Be ready to scrap it and do something completely new. And I think when you work by yourself, it's easy to get like, your ego could probably get bigger, and you think your shit is good no matter what.
That's
Even
good.
if something
Compete-
does critique it, yeah.
You know, you have a competing voice telling you, like, well, that was pretty good, but look at these problems with it, or issues, or, you know, sections you can make better. Maybe it's nothing bad.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to potentially kind of hurt tattooing, is that everybody's splintered in their private studio space. I mean, granted, you'll be able to expand in a way on your own work that won't share a commonality of voice that you get working with a group of artists. But the other side of that is that, you know, are you driven enough to really work on your stuff to improve it? Are you going to have an outside voice at some point, you know, during the process, either if it's just on paper or what, to like make that kind of work?
Right.
So I think that should be interesting to see how that kind of like works out in the next 5 years, or what tattooing kind of looks like with everyone going more and more private studio, working by themselves. I wonder what that's gonna do or look like.
And kind of like, where are they getting their influences from?
Right.
Because it's interesting how a shop like Skull and Sword started to have a look just across the board, even though everyone had their different styles. I don't even know if I could put my finger on what that was, but there was something you could see, like there was a Skull and Sword look. Do you think that's true? Like,
I think
for a group of people,
I think for a most part, yeah. I mean, we really worked on ourselves and on each other a lot there. You know, we all had to. I think we all had to. I know I had to learn to, you know, live what we talked about, which was like, don't get attached to that drawing because you're gonna have to fucking fix it. You know, and like, you know, you work on your drawing for 2 days or some shit. You come in and like 2 different people go like, fix that, remove that, do that. You're like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard.
And that's the big thing about having your drawings done way before the appointment. Because it's like, and I know that I do this to you sometimes. I'm like, I'm doing this today. It's like, dude, come on, man.
I know.
But having it done like a week before, so you actually had the time to do the changes properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes a lot of discipline.
Right. But it takes a lot of like, for me, it would take, you take 1 minute or something to be like mad about it. And you're like, okay, I'm ready to do the work,
Yeah.
you know? But sometimes you're like, I need a minute.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm pissed off about this, and okay, I'm going to do it. You're racing it when you're mad, and you're doing this thing, and you're like, okay, let's fix this. Let's make it better. And you make it better, and you're like, cool, thanks. You know, like, I'm good. I'm glad I did that. I'm not mad at all anymore. I'm super happy. But sometimes in the moment, sometimes it wouldn't be like that. But once in a while, you'd be like, I don't want to I don't want to change this thing. I'm like, God damn it, this is going to be a lot of work. This isn't like...
Because it's a ton of work, retracing it.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, change the color of this jewel. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, this whole arm and leg and the angle of this thing, change them all. You're like, fuck, cool. I'll just redraw this whole dynamic.
Yeah,
figure.
instead of 3/4, forward facing the whole thing.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, 100% that stuff you want to just pull your hair out.
What do you say to younger guys who are like in a group of, like Jordan that's working with us, Jordan Wright? He was having a problem with like getting critiques from so many different people and then being conflicting.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting everyone's critique, but like, how do you choose what to use and like what do you?
I think you figure out whose work you like, and you want to like maybe lean on their opinion a little bit more. My idea would be to do that because, if you like the way their work looks, it would make more sense to follow their lead because they're creating art that vibes more with what you want to create. And then some of it's just going to be like what makes sense to you, right? Like, it's really hard to implement information or critique that you don't understand how to implement.
Right.
So maybe in the moment, use what the people that are offering stuff that you understand, and then you have to wait on the more complex stuff with stuff that's more abstract. You're like, I don't really know what that looks like or what that means.
Or do you still understand what they're saying at all?
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, honestly, that would happen to us sometimes with Skull and Sword. Be like, do this thing because of this and this, and and then our joke would just be like, here's my drawing and my pencil. It's like, here, my pencil's broken. Like, you do it for me because I don't get it.
Right. Yeah.
And then you drew it, and then even once in a while, whoever got their thing fixed by somebody else would still be like, I don't fully get it.
Yeah.
Like, there would be a part.
that. My pencil's broken. Yeah.
Oh, Harry, hey man, my pencil's broken.
Yeah.
Totally, man. You got to fix that shit. And that's the cool thing that you said earlier. Like, this guy works with you. He showed you this thing. That's your trip now. That's like, you can feel better about using that because it's part of your family. Like, giving you that. It's not like you just grabbed it off the internet, you know? It's
Right.
different.
But you also understand it better.
And you understand it better,
And
yeah.
I think that's the interesting part about, borrowing heavily is that people do it in a parroting way. They just parrot what they're seeing, but they don't understand why things got the way they were, or, the personality behind the choice and why that might be. 'Cause there's so many weird, subtle reasons why that might have ended up that way,
Right.
And they could be so far out even the artistic realm. It could be like, oh, I tattooed in street shops, so I always chose this thing, and now it's worked in this other way, and I'm going to give it to you. But you'd never know that, like, the reason I came up with some of these ideas is just because of this weird, like, geographical location of this particular shop where I got this particular kind of work a lot. Mm-hmm. And then the person parroting that has no idea, and maybe it doesn't really work that well with their clientele. Right. But they're doing it anyway because they like the way it looks or they like some idea about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not just
that color palette because that was a cover used on looking at the photo.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that makes sense, kind of choosing someone that maybe has a style that you want to mimic, or that kind of is more in line with your work.
Or where you want your work to, like, I really like the way their work looks, why would I not listen to them? Because they're communicating stuff with me that they're applying to their own work, and I really appreciate the work, the way it speaks to me, the language of it, how it operates to the eye.
Right.
And I think that could be valuable. I mean,
Like Jordan with Zach, I felt like Zach's work, obviously Jordan really loves and
right.
kind of aspires to, so it made sense for Zach to critique his stuff a little bit more. Maybe me or
Sure.
Jeff.
Right. It makes sense for sure. And I think that, I think another challenging aspect of giving critique is to, you got to remove your ego from the critique. So you can, but you shouldn't, I don't think, offer up stuff that is trying to influence it in a way that ends up giving information that steers it toward the look of your own work. The challenge is to give the information that lets them become the best version of what they want to be and still retain what they're doing in their style and their point of view and their language, and not be like, well, change this.
Yeah.
Change this part because I don't like the style here and this other thing. So I think that's a lot of people.
I think you're good at that. I mean, I see you giving critiques and like making sure it stays within their style, as opposed to like making it like Utara working with you. Obviously, his style is much different.
Sure, absolutely.
But still like able to critique it, knowing what the look is that he's going for.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have, as artists, you have to communicate that with each other. Be like, well, this is what I'm going for. And be like, okay, with that in mind, then, okay, maybe the other part of what I said we can ignore.
Yeah.
And we can focus on maybe just these things then.
I think I struggled with that earlier in my career, of like styles mixing, like, oh, this is really flat and this is really dynamic, and like putting them together just looks strange. You got to kind of have more of an even filter over the whole drawing, and like trying to use this really or crazy dynamic flower next to a really flat snake, or vice versa. And it sometimes wouldn't work. Sometimes it could, but
Sure.
And I think it was just like my developing what I wanted my tattoos to look like, which took a while.
Right.
Trying to like find my own voice in it. Because because I worked with people. I was like, I love this stuff and I love this stuff, and it kind of all like got put in a blender and just came out as my tattoos, you know?
Yeah.
Which is easy to have happen, I think, in your early years of tattooing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of has to happen, right?
Right.
Like everyone does it because, I mean, no one's like living on an island creating like, you know, whole genres of art that no one's ever seen and hasn't been influenced by anybody. It just, it's not realistic.
Yeah.
You know, we're all kind of like a patchwork of the things that we see and hear and, you know, understand.
Yeah.
We're just choosing the patchwork that we want. Right. Like, this is my quilt. This is what my quilt of my life looks like.
That's why I'm like trying to do more reference of not looking at tattoos as much. Even like scrolling through Instagram and stuff like that. Because it does start to feel like it's infiltrating my brain, you know?
It is.
And what do you look at when you're looking for reference or just inspirational nerd?
I mean, it depends on what I'm trying to draw, honestly. A lot of times, well, I mean, I don't know. What do I look at when I'm trying to draw? Sometimes it's the real subject, you know? Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's oftentimes I look in older stuff. Like, I don't look at a lot of contemporary stuff for influence. It's usually like
fine art?
No, I don't look at a lot of fine art. I don't know. I guess it depends on the subject, you know?
Right.
A lot of it, honestly, I fall back on the same influences and the same people as when I first started tattooing. It's like Ed, Eddie, you know? It's like those guys are the stuff that I still kind of like keep in the far back of my mind when I'm thinking about creating or certain stuff, or it's older, like think about irons or something, or think about, you know, I don't know, you know, my stuff's pretty, whatever, free. Like, I'm not trying to define the kind of work I do, so it gives me a lot more freedom to where I'm not saying, oh, I do, you know, Kuranuma looking stuff, but then I do some stuff that's like not Kuranuma, and people are like, well, that stuff kind of sucks, because they're used to seeing Kuranuma looking wannabe shit, right. And then I'm doing something that doesn't look like that. So I'm lucky in that regard, where I can just do whatever, because my stuff's always all over the place, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, especially the new stuff you've been doing, it's been cool to see. Like, having, when you reached out to all the clients, you're like, I've got a bunch of new projects I want to start. Because I didn't know what I was going to walk upstairs and see. Like, it was like really wild and cool. And also, like, your clients being open to it, loving your stuff that much that they trust you, and they know,
Absolutely.
I have no idea what this is going to look like or what direction you're going in, but
Right.
they know it's going to be a grind tap. But the direction was definitely like going different ways, and you could see it kind of evolving, and it's really cool to see.
Well, thank you. I think some of it too is just ideas, you know. Some of it's like conclusions to like social commentary or something sometimes for me. It could be like the idea, it's an idea about what my brain's coming up with about society or my life or the world. Sometimes it's that. It's not like, oh, I'm going to combine these three, you know, this tattooer and this painting together. Sometimes it's like, I don't know, I thought about this thing, and then, you know, that made this an article, I read the news, and then it made me think about how that kind of could be looked at like this. And then I think, oh, but that could also be represented in something like this. And then I think, well, that actually could be something cool, and then maybe I'll work on that a little bit more, and then I come with, fuck, I'd like to do that. That would be cool.
Like, how so? Do you have a specific example? You know, it's like political commentary in your tattooing? Or just
I don't inject it. No, I don't inject any of that stuff. I'm just saying it could come from that. Like,
Yeah.
It could come from the thought about that. Like the you know, I don't know. Could they talk about like, I don't know. Some of it's just like
smiley faces in the eyes.
No, I mean that's stuff that's like already in the you know, that stuff's already kind of in the air.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't make that up. That's just like I I don't know.
Are you talking about like content, like actual imagery, or are you talking about?
Like the thing, like the smiley faces, the eyes. I mean, I've seen other artists do it. You know, I didn't
Yeah.
invent it or anything, but I just thought it would work good for that thing in particular.
Yeah. That was awesome. It made it look tougher somehow. It was one of my favorite things you did.
It's like how Snodgrass does that, and I've seen other psychedelic, like
Yeah.
way older artists do that too. But like the I think let me think here.